Throughout history, the Bible has introduced us to figures of incredible faith and virtue, but lurking within its pages are also tales of some of the most dangerous and malicious characters imaginable. Among these, a handful of women stand out, their actions so treacherous that they have been remembered for millennia as cautionary examples of deceit, wickedness, and betrayal. What drives a person to commit such acts of evil? And how did these women's actions shape the course of biblical history? Today we delve into the stories of the 5 most dangerous and evil women in the Bible, each leaving a dark legacy behind. Prepare to be shocked as we uncover their deeds, starting from the least to the most dangerous on this list. Number 5. Potiphar's wife. Potiphar's wife lived in ancient Egypt during a time when Joseph, one of the sons of Jacob, had been sold into slavery by his jealous brothers. Joseph was purchased by Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and the captain of the guard, which was a high-ranking and influential position. Recognizing Joseph's exceptional administrative skills and the favor of God upon him, Potiphar entrusted him with the management of his entire household. But Potiphar's wife became infamous for a different reason: her relentless attempts to seduce Joseph. The Bible describes her as a woman driven by lust, possibly by boredom or a desire for control, who persistently sought to entice Joseph into an affair. This episode is detailed in Genesis 39, verses 7 to 10, and after a time, his master's wife cast her eyes on Joseph and said, "Lie with me," but he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, because of me, my master has no concern about anything in the house. And he has put everything that he has in my charge. He is not greater in this house than I am, nor has he kept back anything from me, except you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" And as she spoke to Joseph day after day, he would not listen to her, to lie beside her or to be with her. When Joseph repeatedly rejected her advances, out of respect for both Potiphar and God, Potiphar's wife turned to deception. One day, when the house was empty of other servants, she seized Joseph by his garment and demanded he lie with her. Joseph fled, leaving his garment in her hand. In a fit of anger and humiliation, Potiphar's wife falsely accused Joseph of attempting to assault her, using the garment as supposed evidence of his guilt. Genesis 39, verses 11 to 18. As a result of her false accusation, Joseph, an innocent man, was thrown into prison by Potiphar, whose anger was kindled by the accusations of his wife. Genesis 39, verses 19 to 20 states, "As soon as his master heard the words that his wife spoke to him, 'This is the way your servant treated me,' his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him into the prison, the place where the king's prisoners were confined. And he was there in prison. The malicious lies of Potiphar's wife not only caused great suffering for Joseph, but also altered the course of his life in a profound way. Yet, through her wicked actions, a greater plan was set into motion. While in prison, God continued to be with Joseph, granting him favor in the eyes of the prison warden. His administrative talents and integrity once again came to light, and Joseph soon rose to a position of influence within the prison. Genesis 39, verses 21 to 23 recounts, "But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him steadfast love, and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. And the keeper of the prison put Joseph in charge of all the prisoners who were in the prison. Whatever was done there, he was the one who did it. The keeper of the prison paid no attention to anything that was in Joseph's charge, because the Lord was with him. And whatever he did, the Lord made it succeed. Joseph's time in prison became a critical turning point in his story. Eventually, Joseph interpreted the dreams of Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker, which ultimately led to his opportunity to interpret Pharaoh's own dreams. This moment was the catalyst for Joseph's rise to power as the second most powerful man in Egypt, overseeing the preparations for a devastating famine. Genesis 41. In the end, the deceit of Potiphar's wife unwittingly paved the way for Joseph's ascension and the salvation of many lives, including his own family, during a time of great crisis. Though Potiphar's wife faced no direct consequences for her deceit, the outcome serves as a powerful reminder that God can turn even the most malicious intentions into opportunities for His greater purpose. Her legacy as a manipulator who falsely accused an innocent man echoes through history, a cautionary tale about the consequences of lies and the power of divine justice. Number 4. Delilah. Many people commit evil, but fewer people revel and thrive in evil. Delilah was one of those. Delilah's story is set during the tumultuous period of the Judges, a time when Israel was frequently at odds with neighboring peoples, including the Philistines. Delilah lived in the valley of Sorek, a region closely associated with the Philistines, who were the enemies of Israel. Despite her association with the Philistines, Delilah's exact nationality is not specified in the Bible. However, her actions reveal her alignment with the Philistine leaders against Israel. Delilah is best known for her role in the downfall of Samson, one of Israel's judges, who was renowned for his extraordinary physical strength. The Philistine rulers, desperate to subdue Samson, saw Delilah as their opportunity. They bribed her with a significant amount of silver to uncover the secret of Samson's strength. Judges 16, verse 5. Delilah, driven by greed, agreed to their plan. Delilah persistently nagged and manipulated Samson, trying to coax the secret of his strength out of him. Despite several false answers, her persistence eventually wore Samson down. Judges 16, verses 16 to 17, describes this relentless pursuit as follows: "And when she pressed him hard with her words day after day, and urged him, his soul was vexed to death. And he told her all his heart, and said to her, A razor has never come upon my head. For I have been a Nazirite to God from my mother's womb. If my head is shaved, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man." After learning the truth, Delilah took advantage of Samson's vulnerability. She lulled him to sleep on her lap and called a man to shave off the 7 locks of his hair, thereby stripping him of his God-given strength. Samson was a tragic victim of Delilah's betrayal. Once his hair was cut, he lost his strength. The Philistines seized this opportunity to capture him, gouge out his eyes, and imprison him in Gaza, where he was forced to grind grain in a prison mill. Judges 16, verse 21. It was a complete humiliation for a judge of Israel. Delilah received a substantial reward from the Philistine leaders for her betrayal, a sum totaling 1,100 pieces of silver from each leader. Judges 16, verse 5. This bribe indicates the high value the Philistines placed on defeating Samson. While Delilah's immediate fate after these events is not detailed in the Bible, her actions had far-reaching consequences. During his captivity, Samson's hair began to grow back, symbolizing the return of his strength. At a Philistine celebration in the temple of Dagon, Samson prayed to God to restore his strength one last time. God granted his request, and Samson pulled down the temple pillars, collapsing the structure and killing many Philistines along with himself. Judges 16, verses 28 to 30. This final act of Samson not only avenged his own suffering but also dealt a significant blow to the Philistine leadership. Although Delilah is not mentioned again, her role in the story is pivotal, highlighting themes of betrayal, deceit, and the consequences of aligning oneself against God's chosen people. Delilah's story serves as a stark reminder of the destructive power of greed and manipulation. Her betrayal led to the suffering of Samson, but also ultimately to the downfall of the Philistine rulers who sought to use her treachery for their gain. Unfortunately, Delilah left a legacy of evil that many still follow today. Number 3. Herodias. This is one of the saddest stories of the Bible. Herodias was a prominent member of the Herodian dynasty, a ruling family in Judea that often intermarried to consolidate power. She was initially married to Herod Philip, her half-uncle. Later, she left him to marry his half-brother, Herod Antipas, the Tetrarch of Galilee and Perea. This marriage was both politically and personally controversial, as it involved divorcing her first husband and marrying his brother, which was considered unlawful by Jewish standards. Herodias is infamous for her bitter grudge against John the Baptist, a revered prophet. John the Baptist publicly denounced her marriage to Herod Antipas, declaring it unlawful according to Jewish law. Mark 6, verses 18 to 19. Herodias, furious and humiliated by John's condemnation, sought revenge. Her opportunity came during Herod's birthday celebration. Herodias manipulated her daughter, Salome, into performing a dance that greatly pleased Herod and his guests. Herod, in his delight, promised to grant Salome anything she desired, up to half his kingdom. Mark 6, verses 22 to 23. Prompted by her mother, Salome asked for the head of John the Baptist on a platter. Mark 6, verses 24 to 25. Herod, though distressed by the request, because he respected John, felt compelled to honor his oath in front of his guests. He ordered John's immediate execution. Mark 6, verses 26 to 27. John the Baptist was the heartbreaking victim of Herodias' vengeful scheme. John, known for his ascetic lifestyle and fearless proclamation of God's truth, was beheaded in prison. His head was brought to Salome on a platter, who then gave it to her mother, Herodias. Mark 6, verses 27 to 28. This gruesome act silenced John but highlighted the ruthless nature of Herodias' vendetta. Herodias faced no immediate consequences for her actions in the biblical narrative. However, her life was far from untroubled. Her husband, Herod Antipas, eventually faced political downfall. The Roman Emperor Caligula exiled Herod Antipas to Gaul, modern-day France, due to accusations of conspiracy and disloyalty. The exile marked the end of Herod's political power and influence. The Bible does not detail Herodias' fate after her husband's exile. Nonetheless, her actions left a lasting impression as an epitome of treachery and vindictiveness. The story of Herodias serves as a powerful reminder of the destructive power of unchecked anger and the lengths to which it can drive a person. Herodias' story intertwines with significant themes of power, manipulation, and the consequences of unrighteous behavior. Her manipulation of her daughter and her successful plot against a righteous man demonstrate her cunning and ruthless nature. Though the Bible does not chronicle her final days, her legacy is one of infamy, illustrating the perilous path of vengeance and the moral decay that accompanies the abuse of power. Number 2. Athaliah. Athaliah was the daughter of King Ahab and Queen Jezebel of Israel, a lineage notorious for idolatry and ruthless rule. Her marriage to Jehoram, king of Judah, created an alliance between the kingdoms of Israel and Judah. Athaliah's influence was significant, particularly after her husband Jehoram's death and her son Ahaziah's brief reign as king of Judah. Upon Ahaziah's death, Athaliah's thirst for power became evident as she sought to secure her position as the most powerful figure in the kingdom. Athaliah's most notorious act was her ruthless seizure of power following the death of her son Ahaziah. To eliminate any threats to her rule, she ordered the massacre of all potential royal heirs. Many people were killed. This gruesome purge aimed to ensure that no one from the royal lineage could challenge her authority. The Bible details this horrific act in 2 Kings 11, verses 1-3, as follows: When Athaliah, the mother of Ahaziah, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the royal family. But Jehosheba, the daughter of King Joram and sister of Ahaziah, took Joash the son of Ahaziah and stole him away from among the king's sons who were being put to death. She put him and his nurse in a bedroom. Thus they hid him from Athaliah, so that he was not put to death. And he remained with her for 6 years, hidden in the house of the Lord, while Athaliah reigned over the land. Unbeknownst to Athaliah, her grandson Joash was saved by his aunt Jehosheba, who hid him in the temple of the Lord. This act of courage preserved the Davidic line, which Athaliah sought to annihilate. The primary victims of Athaliah's ambition were the royal family members and potential heirs to the throne. Her merciless slaughter extended to any who posed a threat to her reign. These included her own grandchildren and other members of the royal household. The extent of her cruelty underscores her relentless pursuit of power and disregard for familial bonds and moral decency. Athaliah's reign of terror lasted for 6 years, during which time she ruled Judah with an iron fist, likely continuing the idolatrous practices she inherited from her parents, Ahab and Jezebel. Her tyrannical rule eventually provoked a response from those loyal to the true royal lineage. The high priest Jehoiada orchestrated a coup to dethrone Athaliah and restore rightful leadership to Judah. He carefully planned and executed the rebellion with the support of military leaders and temple guards. When Joash was 7 years old, Jehoiada revealed him to the people as the rightful king. The people of Judah, tired of Athaliah's tyranny, rallied behind Joash. 2 Kings 11, verses 12-16, describes the dramatic turn of events. Then he brought out the king's son and put the crown on him and gave him the testimony. And they proclaimed him king and anointed him. And they clapped their hands and said, "Long live the king." When Athaliah heard the noise of the guard and of the people, she went into the house of the Lord to the people. And when she looked, there was the king standing by the pillar, according to the custom, and the captains and the trumpeters beside the king. And all the people of the land rejoicing and blowing trumpets. And Athaliah tore her clothes and cried, "Treason! Treason!" Then Jehoiada the priest commanded the captains who were set over the army, "Bring her out between the ranks, and put to death with the sword anyone who follows her." For the priest said, "Let her not be put to death in the house of the Lord." So they laid hands on her, and she went through the horses' entrance to the king's house, and there she was put to death. Athaliah was executed, ending her brutal reign. Her death marked the end of her family's influence over Judah and the restoration of the Davidic lineage through Joash. Her life and actions serve as a stark warning against the corrupting influence of power and the consequences of unchecked ambition. The people of Judah, under the guidance of Jehoiada, returned to the worship of the Lord, and Joash began his reign. symbolizing the renewal of a godly kingship in Judah. Number 1. Jezebel. If you think Athaliah was brutal, wait until you hear about Jezebel. Jezebel was the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, who was both a monarch and a high priest of Astarte, a pagan deity. Her marriage to Ahab, the king of Israel, was a political alliance that brought significant cultural and religious influence into Israel. Jezebel was a fervent worshiper of Baal, a Canaanite deity, and she actively promoted the worship of Baal and Asherah throughout Israel, leading the nation into deep idolatry and apostasy. Jezebel's actions were marked by extreme wickedness and a determined effort to replace the worship of Yahweh with Baal worship. Jezebel aggressively promoted Baal worship, erecting altars and temples dedicated to Baal and Asherah. She influenced King Ahab and the people of Israel to turn away from Yahweh, leading the nation into widespread idolatry. 1 Kings 16, verses 31 to 33. Her efforts were not just religious but also political, as she sought to consolidate power by aligning Israel's religious practices with those of her homeland. One of Jezebel's most infamous acts was orchestrating the murder of Naboth, a righteous man who owned a vineyard that Ahab coveted. When Naboth refused to sell his vineyard, Jezebel devised a sinister plan to accuse Naboth of blasphemy and treason. She wrote letters in Ahab's name, instructing the elders and nobles of Naboth's city to falsely accuse him. As a result, Naboth was stoned to death, and Ahab seized the vineyard. 1 Kings 21, verses 7 to 16. This act demonstrated Jezebel's ruthlessness and her willingness to use deceit and murder to achieve her goals. In her cruel rule over Israel, one man dared to stand against Jezebel and her evil family. His name was Elijah. After Elijah's dramatic victory over the Jezebel-sponsored prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, where he proved the power of Yahweh and had the false prophets killed, Jezebel was furious. She vowed to kill Elijah in retaliation, forcing him to flee for his life. 1 Kings 19, verses 1 to 2. Jezebel's relentless pursuit of Elijah illustrated her deep-seated hatred for the prophets of Yahweh and her determination to eliminate anyone who opposed her religious agenda. Jezebel ordered the massacre of many prophets of Yahweh, seeking to exterminate those who remained faithful to God. This persecution created a climate of fear and oppression among the faithful in Israel. 1 Kings 18, verse 4. Her actions led to the concealment of prophets by Obadiah, a faithful servant of the Lord, who hid 100 prophets in caves to protect them from Jezebel's wrath. Jezebel's reign of terror left a trail of innocent victims across the land of Israel. Jezebel's evil deeds did not go unpunished. Her death was foretold by the prophet Elijah as a divine judgment for her wickedness. Elijah declared that dogs would devour Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. 1 Kings 21, verse 23. This prophecy highlighted the severity of her crimes and the impending divine retribution. Jezebel met her gruesome end when Jehu, a commander anointed by the prophet Elisha to destroy Ahab's house, came to Jezreel. Jezebel, in a final act of defiance, adorned herself and taunted Jehu from a window. Jehu ordered her to be thrown down from the window, and she was trampled by horses. Her body was left to be eaten by dogs, leaving only her skull, feet, and hands, thus fulfilling Elijah's prophecy in a vivid and horrifying manner. 2 Kings 9, verses 30 to 37. Jezebel's legacy is one of profound wickedness and idolatry. Her name became synonymous with treachery and immorality, serving as a cautionary tale of the consequences of leading others away from God. Her story is a stark reminder of the destructive power of sin and the inevitability of divine justice. In this episode, we explored the stories of 5 dangerous and evil women from the Bible: Potiphar's wife, Delilah, Herodias, Athaliah, and Jezebel. Each of these women left a legacy of deceit, manipulation, and ruthlessness, illustrating the destructive power of unchecked ambition, greed, and betrayal. From Potiphar's wife's false accusations to Delilah's treacherous betrayal, Herodias' vengeful schemes, Athaliah's thirst for power, and Jezebel's dangerous influence, we see how their actions led to suffering and turmoil. Yet these stories are more than ancient tales. They serve as timeless lessons for us today. They remind us of the importance of integrity, the dangers of allowing hatred and greed to take root, and the consequences of misusing power and influence. These lessons are just as relevant now as they were then, encouraging us to live with humility, honesty, and respect for others. Let us learn from their mistakes, choosing to live in a way that uplifts and honors those around us. By embracing these values, we can build a better, more just world for ourselves and those who come after us. If you found this content insightful, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and leave a comment below with your thoughts. Join us as we continue to explore the deep truths and lessons hidden within the Bible. Thank you for watching, and God bless you.